All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're unpacking the latest earnings report from Novo Nordisk, the company behind those game-changing drugs, Ozempic and Wegovy. Their Q4 2025 numbers just dropped, and on the surface, everything looked amazing. But, and this is a big but, the way the market reacted, well, that told a completely different and honestly a much more interesting story.
So here's the paradox right at the heart of it all. Novo Nordisk didn't just meet expectations, they absolutely blew them out of the water. We're talking a big beat on earnings per share, and they raked in almost $500 million more in revenue than anyone thought they would. So what happened? The stock immediately tanked. It dropped over 6%. Crazy, right?
So, yeah, what is going on here? How on earth does a company post these incredible, stellar results and then just watch its stock price fall off a cliff? That's the big question, and that's exactly what we're going to get to the bottom of today.
Okay, this is what you'd call a classic Wall Street paradox. It's one of those times where the big, flashy headline numbers just don't paint the full picture. So to really get what's happening, we've got to peel back the layers and look at both the good and the bad news that was kind of buried in that report.
All right, so let's start with the good stuff. And trust me, there was a ton of good news to go around. I mean, the company's performance in 2025 was, by pretty much every metric, just off the charts strong.
First off, let's talk sales for the whole year. They were up a super healthy 10%. Now, that's not just okay, that's solid, consistent growth. It tells you this is a company firing on all cylinders.
But wait, it gets better. The real star of the show? That was their obesity care division. I mean, driven by the insane popularity of drugs like Wegovy, sales in that part of the business shot up by an incredible 31%. 31! That's not just growth, people. That is a full-blown explosion.
And the good news just kept on coming. Right after the quarter ended, in January 2026, they dropped a total game changer, a pill version of Wegovy. You take it once a day. This was a massive deal, right? Finally, an alternative to the injections that's way more convenient.
So how did it do? The demand was, well, it was immediate and honestly just stunning. We're talking about 50,000 prescriptions a week for this new pill, just in the first few weeks. If that doesn't tell you the market was absolutely starving for this, I don't know what does.
And get this, there's this quote from their earnings call that really puts it all into perspective. The executive straight up said the launch was over twice that of any prior anti-obesity drug launches in the United States. Think about that. Not just a little better, more than twice as successful. We're talking completely uncharted territory here.
Okay, so now we get to the big pivot in the story. After all these amazing numbers, a launch that just shattered records, you've got to be asking yourself, what could possibly be wrong? Well, the answer, my friends, is all about what's coming next. It all comes down to the forecast.
And this is the number that sent a shockwave through the market. For the next year, 2026, Novo Nordisk said they expect sales to go down, not up. They're forecasting a decline of somewhere between 5 and 13%. I mean, think about it. You just posted 10% growth, and now you're telling everyone to expect a major drop? Yep, that's what sent investors running for the hills.
So the big question is, why the sudden doom and gloom? What's behind this pessimistic forecast? Well, the execs on the call used a simple two-word phrase, pricing headwinds. Okay, sounds corporate, right? But what does that actually mean? Let's break it down.
So, pricing headwinds. It's basically just a catch-all term for a whole bunch of different things that are all forcing Novo Nordisk to sell their drugs for less money. And that's the key, right? Even if you sell way more pills and injections, if you're getting less money for each one, that can seriously hurt your revenue.
Okay, so headwind number one. It's something called loss of exclusivity, or LOE for short. Basically, the patents on their main drug ingredient, semaglutide, are starting to run out in some countries. And as soon as that happens, boom, the door swings wide open for cheaper, generic versions to flood the market. And what does competition do? It pushes prices way down.
Then there's headwind number two. And this one is a big deal because it's happening in their single biggest market, the US. It's called a most favored nation clause. It's a deal with the government that basically forces them to give a super low price for some government programs. And you can bet that low price creates a ripple effect, putting pressure on what they can charge everyone else in the entire country.
And it doesn't stop there. On top of those two big things, you've got a whole pile of other issues. I'm talking more and more competition jumping into the ring. They're having to accept lower prices just to get their drugs covered by insurance. And to top it all off, several states have actually cut Medicaid coverage for these anti-obesity drugs. It's like the perfect storm of pricing pressure all hitting at once.
So okay, with all of that bad news, you might be thinking things look pretty bleak. And yeah, the short term is definitely looking tough. But here's the thing. Novo Nordisk is not just sitting around waiting for the sky to fall. They have a plan. They are betting the entire farm on their long-term strategy. And that strategy is one word: innovation.
So how do you fight against falling prices? Well, their answer is pretty bold. Make your own blockbuster drugs obsolete before anyone else can. They are just pouring money and resources into their R&D pipeline with the goal of rolling out a whole new wave of treatments that are even better than what they have now.
And this right here, this visualizes their strategy perfectly. What you're looking at are results from a trial for their next generation drug. It's called CagriSema. And you can see, in a really important measure for diabetes, it performed even better than their current mega-hit drug. It's the classic strategy. They are literally building a better mousetrap.
And they're not putting all their eggs in one basket either. CagriSema isn't their only shot on goal. They've got another one called semaglutide coming up, plus a whole bunch of other treatments in the works for diabetes, obesity, and even rare diseases. The playbook is crystal clear. Keep launching new, innovative drugs that command a premium price to make up for the money they're losing on the older stuff.
Okay, let's pull the camera back for a second and look at the big picture. What does all this really mean for Novo Nordisk, which is, without a doubt, one of the most watched companies on the planet right now?
I think what we're really seeing here is a company at a super interesting crossroads. On one hand, they're facing some very real, very intense short-term pain from all these pricing issues. But on the other hand, they are sitting on top of a ginormous long-term opportunity in treating obesity and diabetes. So the entire company really is making this one huge bet that the amazing new drugs they have coming down the pipeline will be more than enough to outweigh all the pressure they're feeling right now.
And really, that leaves us with the billion-dollar question, not just for the company, but for anyone invested in it. You've got this high-stakes race between today's falling prices and tomorrow's scientific breakthroughs. Can innovation really win that race? The answer to that question is going to define the entire next chapter for this pharma giant.